Good morning and happy Victoria Day. It is beautiful Victoria Day, 20th of May. It's Monday. I was going to say it's Sunday. No, it's Monday. And my cat's tail is fluffing around here. He's a treasure. He's a beautiful cat. So I've been playing around with the lighting, and I see right here the shine. I cannot. If you can leave me with some tips for lighting, I know that when the light comes from behind me, I have shadow on my face, and that's not good. So the light is coming from the window, so it wasn't good. Somebody told me to make sure that the light comes from behind the camera, which I tried that with my artificial lights. I have a stand with 3 lights. It was behind my camera, and then when that happens, I have these directly shining into my eyes, which reflects in my glasses, and that's not good because then you can't really see my eyes when I look like this, you see? So if I put it off to the side, then I have light coming from the front-ish, but I have a shadow here, and I have light coming from behind, and I'm really having a bit of a hard time trying to figure out the whole lighting thing. So if you have a simple suggestion that I can use every time, I'd really appreciate it. I know that I have to elevate. See, the laptop, my thing is a laptop. I don't have a cell phone. So the laptop is at my chest level because I have a book stand that elevates the laptop about a foot off of the dining room table. So that tends to work. And when I do my filming upstairs in my reading room, I have a table that stands quite high, about waist high if you're standing, and I put myself lower so that any lighting doesn't shine in my eyes, but I don't know where to put the light. It's a trial and error every time I want to do a video because I'm trying to change the background so that it's a little bit more, visually stimulating to see, but then I have to do this whole fight all over again. Every time I have to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. It's just, anyways, and I love to, if you cannot have a cup of tea in a proper cup of, for tea, in a proper teacup on Victoria Day, then I don't know when you can. So I decided to dispense with the mug for this morning, and I am drinking my tea out of a proper cup because it always tastes better in a proper cup, and I have it coming out of a proper teapot with loose leaves, but I didn't let the leaves stay on the bottom where they get bitter. I put them in a tea ball. Now at my mom's house, we always had the loose leaves on the bottom of the teapot. That's because the tea does not stay in the pot very long. No, not at all. It gets consumed quite quickly. Now this is a coffee pot, by the way. So I will give you a quick, oh Lord, it's a dusty education today. This is a coffee pot because it is taller than the teapot. Now if I bring this up close, quite possibly, this can be still one of the thumbnails that I'll be able to choose from. I've noticed that YouTube will tend to give thumbnails where there's an action that actually happens. So we'll see if I'm able to use that as a thumbnail. And I'm going to be a bit of a geek today because it's Victoria Day and because I'm a geek about tea and afternoon tea time. And I have matching sugar and milk containers as well. And I do have it on a silver tray. You want to see that too? I'm going to show you that. Looky. I bought it on a silver tray. Yes, it is my lovely tray. Oh, I cannot show you the design. I'm going to show you the design because when will I ever do it again? Next Victoria Day, who knows where I will be then. Let me just show you. Oh, the designs are lovely. Yeah, I love it. Look at that. And you see on top the lights, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can't quite see it, but you can see the reflection. That's my chandelier. Yes, I have a proper chandelier. I bought it secondhand, of course. It was actually brand new in the box. The people had bought 2 chandeliers. I could only buy one because, there was only so much. It's actually an oversized chandelier for this space. It's quite here. Let me see if I can show you. It doesn't show very well. There. Ooh. Hopefully it'll show. Ta-da! Yes. That is my chandelier. I'm going to show you my lovely things on Victoria Day because I love shabby chic. Yes. It is oversized for this room because for that size chandelier, you don't want to put it in a room of this size, which is about, well, wall to wall. Mind you, I have a staircase, so we're talking 11 by 11 feet, at best 121 square feet. But the staircase kind of reduces about 4 feet of that width on one side. So this, well, maybe 12 by 12. So it might be 8 by 12 at the end of the day, because there's a staircase. And even when I ever move, it's coming with me. My intention, though, is to stay here my whole life. When I die, I'm staying, just to make sure that any future occupants of the home take care of it the way it ought to be taken care of. Word to the wise, I'm here to stay. That's right, as she cackles. Okay, so, yes, my Putin, you can stay too. Yes, we have a number of animals who have lived here with us, and they have died. Probably about one in each room so far we've counted. The bedrooms, only one bedroom had a cat die in there, but pets have died in all of the rooms on the main floor, and so we have 3 bedrooms left that are in the basement. So who knows, maybe we'll take care of that at some point. Maybe somebody will spontaneously die in their bed, like me one day in about 120 years. Okay, let's not get too morbid on Victoria Day. Oh my goodness. I'm going to turn this into a Halloween. Welcome to the Halloween show. We are going to read chapter 7 today from Thea Sabin. And yes, I know that my hair is big. I did big hair today. I went 80s. I went 80s. I even blow dried my hair upside down, which was a very 80s thing to do. Do a little bit of messy, do a little bit of hairspray. Yes, I was a teen in the 80s, and that's where I learned how to do hair. And I went with that today. So I'm in a bit of a playful mood, and good for me. So, getting to know the Wiccan gods. If you're going to be playful with the gods. Here we go. Oh, wait. Do you have your cup of tea? You need your cup of tea? There's something so lovely about a cup of hot tea. It's soothing. And getting to know the Wiccan gods. And already I want to stop and talk. Is there a difference between Wiccan gods and any other god? Because I think a lot of things. Let's just read. In Wicca, the divine or deity is greater than creation, and yet it is creation. I'm going to try and get an angle where I don't have to deal with the lights, but it's not very helpful. Whatever. It is immanent in all things, but it is also distant and beyond our grasp. It is too vast for us to comprehend in its entirety, but we can begin to experience it through our relationship with the gods, who are facets of the divine. As I mentioned briefly in chapter 2, the 2 main aspects of deity that Wiccans work with are simply called the goddess and the god. They are the female and the male halves of the divine. In Wiccan thought, the union of the goddess and the god create the universe. The relationship between the goddess and the god is symbiotic. They help each other. Like darkness and light, each half needs the other to express itself fully. The god represents, among other things, power, unmanifest, the spark of life. The goddess gives the power form. And that's where you're talking about the seed, the spark of life, and giving the power form, which is the receptacle and where you're going to have a space for gestation. So are the gods real, sentient, independent entities? Are they masks that humans put on deity to understand it better, as Joseph Campbell suggests? Are they archetypes, symbols for universal themes that tend to pop up in the same way across cultures? Are they thought forms that have taken on energy as people have revered them over years? And to know more about thought forms, if you're interested in that type of theory, you might want to look at chaos magic and writings of Phil Hines, and anybody who writes about chaos magic, in fact. Yeah, and thought forms. You might want to look at thought forms. Anyway, read and read and read. They are thought forms that have taken on energy. Okay, are they thought forms that have taken on energy as people have revered them over years? Are they simply facets of our own psyches? Many Wiccans would tell you that the gods are all of those things. That's where I am. I am definitely, the gods are all about those things, which are by no means mutually exclusive, and more. The idea of a female and a male polarity, which is what the goddess and the goddess are, is a bit abstract, but the Wiccan gods themselves, the faces of Wicca, put on the two sides of the polarity, are no abstract at all to those who work with them. Wiccans have a deep love and respect for their gods, but they do not cower in front of them or beg favors. That's why sometimes some Wiccans, some people will take exception to using a word like prayer, because prayer predisposes you to be begging or asking or beckoning to or appealing to a god that is more powerful, and so there's a power difference there. Whereas sometimes in magic we look at working with the gods, not under and beckoning to them, so that we can incorporate their energies with our own to manifest something. And so it's a philosophy of thought. It is a school of thought. And really, it is not a reason to be condescending to other people who have different schools of thought. And so there should be, I anticipate, within our civilized society, a mutual respect between religions, because some people will think about a monotheistic God as the way, and other people will think about having many gods as an appropriate way. And so there has to be that sort of mutual respect amongst people of various religions and various belief systems. Sorry, I'm just injecting my way of thinking. So Wiccans work with their gods in a reciprocal partnership. That is what I'm explaining. Since in Wicca, everyone is his or her own best priestess, and no one comes between you and the gods, Wiccans have the responsibility and honor of forging bonds with the gods for themselves. A Wiccan's relationship to the gods can be very intimate and familiar. This doesn't mean that Wiccans will invite Thor and Freya to down a few brews while they watch the Super Bowl and eat Doritos, but it does mean that they talk directly to, work with, and get to know their gods at a level that is not nearly as easy to achieve in a framework of a large mainstream religion. So who are the Wiccan gods? There's a heading. Okay, it says the goddess. The Wiccan goddess is the mother of all things. She is the earth, which births and sustains us and receives us again in death. She is the source of fertility and abundance. She is the great and nurturing mother, but since all things must die, she also represents death, which is necessary for rebirth. The moon is the symbol of the goddess. Like the moon, which has its waxing, full, waning, and new phases, the goddess has many faces. She is energetic and full of potential like springtime, mature and fruitful like summer, aging and wise like autumn, and dark and silent like winter. Some Wiccans think of the goddess as having three aspects: youthful, maiden, fertile mother, and wise crone. And that she shows each of these faces in turn as the cycles of the year progress. Others, like me, like the author, believe that she possesses and shows all of these attributes all of the time. She is the constant, eternal feminine principle. Some of her symbols are the moon, the cup or the chalice, the cauldron, owls, cows, milk, silver, flowers. Okay, flowers, shells, and pearls. Those are all symbols of the goddess. Flowers. Let's watch the flowers bloom. I think I'm too giddy to do videos today. Okay. The next heading is the god. The god, sometimes called the horned god, is the great hunter, the lord and steward of the animals and forest. He is often pictured with horns to show his affiliation with the earth's creatures. He is fierce and feral, wise and gentle. The sun is the symbol. Let's try this side here, the light side. Okay. I'll turn to the light side to read about the god. Okay, he is often pictured with horns. He is fierce and feral, wise and gentle. The sun is the god's symbol, and like the sun, without which the earth and goddess would be barren. The god is the energetic principle. The god also represents sex and the urge to life. The urge to life. Not the urge to live. I read that correctly. The urge to life. Many Wiccans link the god with the agricultural cycle, which is interesting because we just read in chapter 6 that agriculture is north. Its correspondence is north, and agriculture and growing food is very northern, and that is feminine. So it's interesting how these things are interconnected. He is the spark of life that makes the seed sprout in the cold ground, the seedling that pushes its head from the earth, the ripened grain, and the harvest. He is also the lord of the underworld, who tends souls from the time of death until they are ready for rebirth. Some of the symbols of the gods are phalluses and phallic objects, such as spears, swords, arrows, and wands. Other god symbols are the color gold, horns or antlers, and the stag, snakes, seeds, and ripened grain, and the sickle. A sickle is like a blade that cuts. It's a C shape. As a complete aside, there's a blood disorder that is called sickle cell anemia. It's predominant in, I believe, those of African descent. The reason why it gets its name is it's shaped like a C, a sickle. It's shaped, the red blood cell it becomes deformed, shaped like a C, like a sickle. And of course it causes, the blood doesn't flow very well because it gets caught because of its shape. And that's where the disorder stems from, and it causes the irregular shape of the blood cell, and it's shaped like a sickle, like a C, like a C-shaped blade. Okay, that has nothing to do with anything. It's just every time I see the word sickle, I think of that. So another heading is the goddess and the god together. The goddess is the god's mother and lover. And that's where I get I feel a little icky about the incestuous nature of the whole belief system. I think, okay, yeah, it's only a belief system. It's only like a myth or a legend, and but I mean, couldn't you have created a legend that's just a little less incestuous? But perhaps, that was probably not as taboo at one time, but it is now. So I take issue with it because I am, in my own time frame. I live in my own time frame, and I'm trying to make sense of things that have historical value. And so, the whole cycle of the year with the incestuous components to, the whole mating with the mother kind of thing is a little icky-doo. The goddess is the god's mother and lover. In the mythos of most Wiccans, the goddess gives birth to the god, he matures, and they make love, and she becomes pregnant. He dies, and he is reborn of her again. The god's existence is cyclical, like the grains, animals, and humans he tends. And the goddess's existence is constant, like the earth beneath our feet. The two are forever entwined throughout the mysteries of life, death, and rebirth. So, yeah, I would have preferred for there to be like separate entities. Like if you want to say the goddess Mother Earth takes the seed. So the earth would be feminine and the seed would be masculine. And then the masculine seed kind of goes into the earth and then generates a tree. And then from that tree falls an apple, which has seeds down into the earth. And so that way I can see that the seed generates a different seed that goes back into the same Mother Earth. Somehow I find that that's a little easier to swallow than to have to kind of look at an incestuous sort of relationship between gods and goddesses. So I do struggle with that bit. But that's only because I'm a product of my time, right? Okay. Introducing yourself to the god and goddess. I suppose, though, as I'm free associating, before I read on, I suppose having come from a Christian, I was, brought up in a very Catholic upbringing, and I look at Mother Mary being the mother of God, is the belief system. That is not really different. You see, that's where I really think that I learned to be pagan from a very young age because I grew up as a Catholic. Because of ideas like that, where I think, where is it written that Mother Mary is the mother of God? Well, she's the mother of Jesus. She physically gave birth to Jesus. That is her child. He is the Son of God. But Mother Mary did not mate with God. There is a virgin birth that came of this myth, this legend, this story. And I've spoken about it before. In that culture, in that time frame, some 2,000 years ago, there were many virgin births. And prior to that, there were many virgin births. Why? Because you had to be married prior to any kind of consummation of the marriage. And so anyone who was pregnant was said to have a virgin birth. Mother Mary was not, the Mary was not the only one who was said to have had a virgin birth. It's actually quite common. So if she's the mother of God, I see that there's a very close parallel between Catholicism, the Catholic belief that I grew up with, and pagan belief, where the mother is both the mother of God and mating with God. So she's the mother of Jesus. She's said to be the mother of God, and she's theoretically mating with a spirit being who is the father of the child. And yet she doesn't get the recognition. Mother Mary does not get the recognition in the Holy Trinity. In the Holy Trinity, it's all masculine. There's the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, or the Holy Spirit, however you say it. And all of those, that Trinity is of masculine gender. She's kind of like sitting not at the right side of God. She is not sitting to the left of God. She's not said to be sitting anywhere around God. She is very peripheral in her role. And that's why I take some issue in the theory that I grew up with, because there's no room for the feminine, other than to be a secondary character of convenience. And I don't like that, because women are quite integral in generating and maintaining life. So there's my 2 cents. Okay. So here is the next heading. Introducing yourself to the god and goddess. Communicating directly with the god and goddess is one of the greatest joys and responsibilities of a Wiccan. You need not go to church or a sacred place to do this, as all places are sacred to them. The following is a simple ritual for introducing yourself to the Great Mother and the Horned God. You can include both of them in one ritual, or, if you'd like, you can hold separate rituals for each one. Just modify the instructions accordingly. You will need an athame, if you have one, or a white or silver candle, a red or gold candle, holders for both candles, matches or lighter, flowers, and acorns or pine cones. So each of those things are representative of feminine and masculine, or feminine and masculine. I've been listening to John McClane far too much recently, and I'm starting to say feminine as feminine, because it's almost becoming a normal way to articulate. Oh, I'm just in awe with that man. He is definitely not a 24-year-old soul. I'm telling you this now. I am telling you this now. He has been around for eons. At 24 years old, to have accomplished what he has accomplished, to speak in the way that he does, I really admire that person. What pooch? Okay. So, this is what you do. Number 1. Clean and clear your ritual space. Number 2, ground. That's all she says. One word, ground. This is a book for beginners. You may not know much about grounding, but you will have to look up about grounding. She does talk a little bit about it. It's basically coming into your own space and planting your feet, planting your soul through your feet, and knowing who you are. We will probably have to talk about grounding at some later date, but there's a lot to be said. There's one word here, one verb, and there's a lot to be said about how to ground yourself. It took me years, actually, to become grounded. It really does, and sometimes I still get shaken. So, number 3, cast a circle. Do not call the quarters. The focus should be on the gods, not the guardians. And calling the quarters is calling the guardians. Number 4, sit in the circle. Sit in the center of the circle on the floor with the candles in their holders in front of you. Light the white or silver candle. Place the flowers next to it and say something like, I light this for you, great goddess, lady of the moon, mother of all things. My name is Butterfly. And I have come here to bring you this offering of flowers. Know you better and seek your wisdom. That is a thing you can say. Note that you are not calling the goddess into the circle. You'll do that later in the chapter. You are simply speaking to her. Number 5, tell the goddess something about yourself, why you are seeking her, what you might like to learn, why you are Wiccan, etc. Tell her something. Number 6, and number 6 is quite long. When you have finished speaking, close your eyes and relax. Breathe deeply. Contemplate the goddess and your relationship with her. Images may form in your mind's eye. Pay special attention to them because they are your messages from the goddess. If nothing happens or if you don't feel the goddess, don't worry. By lighting the candle and stating your intent, you have made yourself known to her. You may receive a message later in your dreams or visions, but the important thing is that you have made yourself known to her. You may need to do this ritual more than once to feel as though you have made contact at the level you would like to. That's okay. There are experienced Wiccans who do the things like this to reconnect too, even though they may have been walking the path for decades. Be patient. Remember that it's not only the Christian God who works in mysterious ways. Oftentimes with Wiccan gods, things happen when they are meant to, and that's not necessarily on your predetermined schedule. All right. Number 7. When the images are gone, or you feel you are ready, open your eyes and say something like, "Thank you, great goddess, for your gift of wisdom." Always, always say goodbye. Always do a closing after you've done an opening. Always, when you do a greeting, have something that says farewell. When you open a circle, you close a circle. When you start a prayer, there's always an amen at the end, isn't there? So it's kind of like when you're greeting a friend. You wouldn't just leave the room without saying, some kind of a salutation as you leave. So you say thank you, and then you can say your farewell. Number 8. Now you are addressing the god. Light the gold or red candle, place the acorn or pine cones next to it, and say something like, "I light this for you, great God, Lord of the sun, Lord of the forest. My name is Butterfly, and I have come here to bring you this offering of acorns, pine cones. Know you better and seek your wisdom." Number 9. Note that, as with the goddess, you are not calling the god into the circle. You will do that later in the chapter. You are simply speaking to him. Number 10. Tell the god something about yourself. Why you are here seeking him, what you might like to learn, why you are a Wiccan, etc. Anything about what you'd like to say. And you don't have to be Wiccan to be doing this, so you may want to say something else. Number 11. Again, close your eyes and relax. Breathe deeply. Contemplate the god and your relationship with him. Images may form in your mind's eye. Pay special attention to them because they are your messages from the god. As with the goddess, if nothing happens, don't worry. The important thing is that you have made yourself known to the god. You may receive a delayed reaction message or a small sign later as you go about your daily routine. Note that you may also have an easier time contacting the god than the goddess, or vice versa. This can be for any number of reasons, including that you identify most with deity of one gender or another, or that the symbol set for one of them resonates with you more clearly. And although I sometimes struggle with separating deity into a male and female component, sometimes I prefer to have a male or a female component. And I do think it has to do with my own sort of monthly cycle. Sometimes I feel like being more attracted to a male because, as feeling heterosexual, that sometimes I do sexualize that sort of that feeling, that attraction, and sometimes I just want to have that sort of energy in my visualizations. And then again, sometimes I am more attracted to the female side of deity, because not that I am physically attracted or sexually attracted to females. There's anything wrong with sort of homosexual thought process, but that is just not my own. When I am more attracted to female, it's more of a kinship, more of a, I'm identifying with the woman within, within the goddess, and feeling kind of like I connect because I am a woman, and because I have that sort of that wisdom to look towards as a role model, and I just feel more connected to that female side of deity sometimes. So although I do struggle with the male and female theologies around gender issues when it comes to deity, sometimes I do appreciate them. So it's a path. It's a path, and I'm glad that they have been separated, even though there is that fluidity between male and female. There it is. Number 12. When the images are gone, or you feel like you are done, say something like, "Thank you, great God, for your gifts of wisdom." Number 13. Stand, take down your circle, and ground. If possible, take the lit candles, the flowers, the acorns or pine cones, and put them in a special place on your altar. See Chapter 8. So we're going to go through Chapter 8 at some point. If you can, allow the flames to burn for a while. Otherwise, snuff the candles. And there's actually, by the way, there's some thoughts around whether to snuff candles or to blow candles. And some people prefer not to blow candles. And some people don't mind either way. So you may want to, discover a little bit more about how to can't unlight, but how to snuff or blow candles, and decide which one you would prefer to do. To deepen or expand on the experience, you can try the ritual again later with the same candles and add other elements. So there is another heading, and it is the, quote, other, quote, unquote, gods. So the other gods. Think for a moment of a tree with a thick trunk that splits into two large branches. In turn, smaller branches grow from the larger ones, and still smaller branches from the smaller ones, and so on. Deity is the trunk of the tree, and the god and the goddess are the two main branches. The smaller branches that fork off of the two big ones are the world's gods and goddesses, facets of the male or female half of deity. And I'm glad she's able to explain it so completely, clearly, because as an aside, I will explain that I have never been able to kind of put the concept as clearly as that, but I have always been of the opinion that God, or the god and the goddess, or gods and goddesses, and all of the deities that anyone connect with, speak to, pray to, work with, they are all components of a larger whole. When we want to understand something, when I want to understand something, I look to what I can see and what I know. And what I see and what I know from nature is I see the cycles of life. And I do think that energy, there's a law that says that energy cannot be created or destroyed, but it is rather recycled or transformed or transferred is the word scientifically that we use. And so in that way, energy that innervates us, that animates us as human beings, that animates trees, and that animates animals. When we die, that energy goes into, where does it go? It goes into where? I think it gets recycled. It is all part of a larger cycle. It is the God energy. And then it comes back and reanimates all of us. So in nature, when we see this sort of branching, we see this branching also sort of illustrating this exact concept of this recycling. We see it in our circulatory system, right? For instance, where there are larger arteries and they branch off, into, smaller capillary, like veins and capillaries and all these things, and they come back into the larger artery, and it gets pumped around and around in a constant cycle. That is what I think happens. Well, that's what I know happens with blood. It's what I think happens also with energy, but on a larger, much more spiritual cycle. So when we talk to a god or a goddess or the god, you may be talking to the artery part of the one monotheistic god, but that's not to ignore the fact that there are other collaterals around that are equally part of the system. You see, that's how I see it. So you see that in nature with the collaterals in a circulatory system. You see it also in the branching of trees. Like she's talking here. So there's the tree trunk, the monotheistic god, but you also see branches of other spirit beings. And then you see the leaves that fall and they go back into the earth, and they fall and they nourish the roots, and then the roots pick up the water and the fertile soil from the nutrients from the soil, and it goes back up in through the roots, through those branches and those collaterals, back up into the trunk of the tree, into the branches, and there you go. You have the cycle. Right? The same thing happens with air. It gets cycled around. The same thing happens with water. You can also see the same kind of collaterals in the neural system. If you look at the neurology, when your neural systems, you have nerves that start out as larger kind of neurons, and then they go out and they branch off into other, what they call collaterals, like the branching system. And then that goes into all the other areas and tissues, and then into the body. And then, you touch something, it's hot, that information goes back up, and innervates, goes into your brain and comes back around and causes a reaction. So you see these sort of things happen. So when I want to understand, God and spirit, I look at what I can figure out from nature, because you see these all around us. You'll see it also in the streams and oceans and waters. You'll see the great big body of the ocean, which is the large body of water, and it in turn flows through. Locally we have the Saint Laurent, the Fleuve Saint, the St. Lawrence Fleuve, the river, and that goes into the Great Lakes, and that goes into other collaterals, and it feeds other water systems, and then eventually goes back into the ocean somehow. So, everything is interconnected that way, and so that's how we understand, that's how I have a finality of understanding, we're part of a larger system. Our energy is part of a larger system. We are part of a God system. How can that be wrong to think that way, when it's all around us? I mean, from a Christian way of thinking, it should make sense, rather than having shame around so much, with the thou shalt nots and one God and only this way of thinking. And so therefore I am somehow justified in killing other people because you don't believe as I do. When their own rules say, don't kill, thou shalt not kill, and yet they've justified killing and shaming and segregating, rather than treating other people the way you want to be treated, which is another premise in Christian belief. But yet there's so much segregation, as we believe that there's a monotheistic God and anybody else is beneath us, or shaming, or misguided, or needs re-education, or needing, conversion. No, honor people for where they are in their life. They make their own life choices, and they have God as their own guide to your own beliefs. So why would you want to mess with that? Pay attention to your own backyard. Anyway. Where was I? I don't even know. Okay, the other gods. Oh yes, the tree trunk. All this about a tree trunk. Deity is the tree trunk, trunk of the tree, and the god and the goddess are the two main branches. The smaller branches that fork off of the two big ones are the world's god and goddesses, facets of the male or female half of deity. Note that there are some deities that are androgynous and don't fit easily into either gender category, but the majority are male or female, and at least some of the time. In addition to working with the goddess and the god, most Wiccans also work with one or more of these facets or faces of the masculine or feminine divine. For example, a Wiccan may ask the Greek goddess Aphrodite for help with the ritual designed to attract love, or call the Egyptian goddess Bast to a ritual to find a lost cat. Both Aphrodite and Bast are faces of the great goddess, albeit very different faces from different cultures and times. If you are new to Wicca, you probably will want to work with only the Wiccan god and goddess in ritual for a while. That way, you will get to know the specific Wiccan gods, get some practice with your ritual skills, and get an idea of what a Wiccan ritual feels like before you try to call a different god or goddess. Some Wiccans never call on other gods and just stick to the great goddess and the god. Later in this chapter, there are some ideas for how to familiarize yourself with the god and call them in a ritual circle. And we'll go on. The next heading is your personal deities. Many Wiccans have personal patron deities. In addition to the god and goddess that they work with frequently, they may call these patrons or matrons to every ritual they do, or set up shrines to the patrons in their homes. Other Wiccans, as in my previous example, will call on gods or goddesses with particular attributes once in a while to help with certain rituals. The choice of the gods that you work with in circle is very personal. No one else can tell you which ones you will resonate with and have the easiest time getting to know. The Celtic, Greek, Roman, Norse, and Egyptian gods are probably the most popular amongst Wiccans, but your deities may not belong to any of these cultures. One of the best ways to find your gods or goddesses is to read mythology. Lots of mythology. There are some mythology books suggestions in the recommended reading list in the back of this book. As you read, with themes or stories stick with you. Which deities have traits that you'd like to attract into your life? Which deities in their stories dealt with a problem similar to one you are dealing with, or had experiences similar to yours? Which deities call your name as you read? Instead of picking one god, you may choose to work with a pantheon. A pantheon is the entire group of gods associated with a culture. For example, the Greek gods. If you are drawn to a particular pantheon, one way to get to know these gods and perhaps find the one that resonates with you best is to visit the sacred sites of that pantheon. This is not always possible because of money or logistical constraints, but if you have the resources to do it, I highly recommend it. It is much easier to get a feel for the gods at their sacred places than it is from reading. If you do visit a site, what do you feel? Do you get any images or sensations? What does the place tell you? If you are fortunate enough to have a museum in your city or town. Another way to find out about a particular culture or pantheon sings to you is to visit displays of art of peoples of various cultures. Is there something familiar in the way any of the art? Does it speak to you in some way? That might be a clue to explore the mythology of the people who created it. It works the same way with music. Listen to music from cultures around the world and see if any of it resonates with you. If it does, look into the mythology of that culture. Yet, any way to find your gods and goddesses is to shake your family tree and explore the mythology of your family's country or culture of origin. If you're Irish or Scottish, the Celtic gods may resonate with you. If you're African American, you may choose to look at some of the deities of Africa. The gods of your bloodline may call to you. Now, this may or may not sound, I don't know if racist is kind of the appropriate word. So when you get into culture, it always becomes a sticky kind of conversation in terms of ethics, because you don't want to say, really, if you're Irish or Scottish, perhaps the Celtic gods may resonate with you. They may, and you may want to stay true to your ancestry. In truth, if you go far back enough, we all have the same ancestry. We all come from the same place, historically speaking. So, in that way, we all have the same roots, the same origin. So therefore, I think it's rather foolish to talk about cultural appropriation, because we all come from the same roots. However, I do have an appreciation for the argument of, respecting other people's cultures. But at the same time, I think that being able to appreciate other people's cultures, to be able to practice the religion and the customs of other cultures, is also a way of showing respect. I certainly wouldn't know as much from other cultures if I thought it was taboo to learn about it and to adopt some of what they do. And none of us would be doing a number of things that we do in a day if we did not adopt something from other cultures. We wouldn't. We wouldn't be eating foods from other cultures. We would not be celebrating, St. Patrick's Day unless you're Irish. We wouldn't be celebrating Christmas, because that comes from one place on the planet at one time, and it is now celebrated around the world by many people who are not from Bethlehem or anywhere around there, right? So, yeah, I think there's something to be said about learning about your own culture of origin in looking for gods and goddesses. But one of the things that I really like about Wicca, one of the things that I like about learning about this craft, is that you can really learn about other people and how they lived and adopt it as part of your own. And so therefore, it's a bit of hypocrisy to adopt anything like the term cultural appropriation. If you are not Buddhist, and if you're looking to Buddhism and yet you are not of that culture, if you are looking to Egyptian goddesses and gods and you are not of that culture, I think that that's okay. But then you can't spin around and say, preach on your soapbox about cultural appropriation, right? That doesn't make sense to me. Anyways, I'm free associating. To make things more complicated, oftentimes, actually, a god or goddess will choose you instead of the other way around. This can be profound and life-changing experience, and even a little scary at times. You'll know this is happening to you if you begin to encounter a lot of things or symbols associated with the deity in your regular life or in dreams and meditations. These symbols may pop up in conversation, on television, or other places. I know one Wiccan who starts seeing owls everywhere she went. Within a short span of time, she saw a live one in a tree and images of them on jewelry, painted on a billboard, and even in an advertisement on the bus. She was thumbing through a magazine at a doctor's office and accidentally opened it to an article on owls. She was flipping channels and ran across a documentary on owls, and she began to feel like she was being stalked by owls. She took the hint and looked into gods and goddesses associated with owls. You may even see the deity who has chosen you in dreams. Sometimes they don't bother beating around the bush with subtle cues and simply make themselves known in showy, loud, hard-to-miss ways. They are the gods, after all. So I'm seeing that this chapter is actually quite long, and we are approaching an hour. So I'm going to stop here for today. This is the first half of chapter 7. And I'm going to make a separate video for the second part of chapter 7. So I hope this finds you well. If you do have any comments, please do leave them respectfully down in the comment section down below. There's always more than one way to look at something, so always be respectful of other people's perspective. Thanks, and have a great day.